second presentation is by Irene Margiolaki. Irene Margiolaki works now in Patos, but she's actually a local girl. Okay? She studied in this university at the Department of Physics, okay, next door to biology. And when she finished with physicist, she went to the University of Sussex and did her PhD, and this was, from what I understand, it is a more material science or something similar. So did that as a PhD at the University of Sussex, and following that she joined the synchrotron, the SRF synchrotron at Grenoble. She became a big mind scientist and worked mainly on powder diffraction. Of course, she did some very important work. She became famous for several of the improvements in powder diffraction during that period, so that these improvements also make biological macromolecule now accessible to powder diffraction techniques. She got various awards for her work. And finally, she joined the Department of Pharmacy, I think. Biology, sorry, pharmacy was previously. The Department of Biology at the University of Patos, where she serves now. And she's going to present us, I think, again, powder diffraction. What I liked very much is her website, which says the power of powder. So maybe you can show us this power.
I'm going to talk in English, of course. Thank you very much, Michalis Kokkinidis, for this invitation. As he already revealed, I come from here, I studied here, and every time I'm invited, I immediately accept. It's my hometown, let's say. So, as the title reveals, I would like to give you an idea about our status today regarding how we employ powder diffraction for structural analysis of proteins. And of course, for those that are not aware, we didn't invent the technique. The technique is a very old diffraction method, mainly used in material science. Our innovative input was that we modified, we improved the methodologies regarding data collection and data analysis in order to study larger molecules as proteins. So this presentation has two axes. One is to explain the methodological developments, and the other is to give you some of our more recent results from the application of the method on pharmaceutical proteins. By pharmaceutical proteins, I mean mainly insulin and insulin analogs that we've been working on for the last 6 years, almost, even more, and proteins coming from viruses that are expected to lead to epidemics. So I will try to give you hints about how we prepare samples which look like this. In many cases, polycrystalline protein precipitates appear by chance. You don't intend to create it, but it appears. And then how we collect data which look like this. Notice that we don't have any longer diffraction spots that you see in a single crystal diffraction experiment, but we have concentric rings. And from here, how we apply crystallographic methods in order to extract structural models. Thank God, diffraction principles and crystallography are the same, regardless of the method you use. regardless the single crystal diffraction or the powder diffraction aspects. And this was very important to communicate to various audiences over the years, because many people got confused and thought we invented a different kind of crystallography, which is not the case. Crystallography is the same. We just measure hundreds of microcrystals that we don't know their orientation. And therefore, the information content of the data is lower with respect to a single crystal diffraction experiment, where the orientation of the crystal is known. Okay, that's the only main difference. Who does that, this kind of work? We are two main groups worldwide. The reason why we are only two is because it's an interdisciplinary area. So both of us are mainly physicists, coming from material science into structural biology. One group is located in Chicago and directed by Irene, who was the first one that showed that protein powders can give good quality data. And then it's our group, since 2010 we are in Patras at the biology department, as Michael explained already. As my first degree was in physics, the transition from physics to crystallography and then structural biology was not easy, let's say. So I thought in order to move further, I need a network of collaborators and colleagues in order to share information. So over the years, over the last 13 years, I created this little network. We are located at the University of Patras, and today we can do protein expression, purification, crystallization, and crystallographic analysis, mainly using powder diffraction. And then we collaborate with the SRF, my former institute, for having access to various instruments. And then we collaborate with two industrial units, Nanomegas and Panalytical, that provided very precious laboratory infrastructure. Pharmaceutical companies as Novo Nordisk, which is based in Copenhagen, and most of the results on insulin have been obtained in collaboration with them. And of course, the funding agents that are so necessary in order for all of us to complete our research programs. So this is our group to date. I forgot to mention the former members. We are mainly biologists, but also physicists, because different people work into different domains. Some people work mainly in the biological part of our work, and some people continue the further development of the powder diffraction methods and algorithms. There are two review articles and one book chapter available, and one will be available this summer, which are basically practical guides for someone that doesn't want to become a powder diffractionist but still wants to extract some information from your data. I tried to include all possible details in this book chapter, which will appear this summer by the end of 2016 precisely, in the new volume of the International Papers of Crystallography, which will be dedicated to powder diffraction. It's produced by the International Union of Crystallography. An older review article written with John Wright, and one which just came out in Protein and Peptide Letters. We created these files in order to help someone to use data that happened to be collected in your lab, and you want to extract at least some preliminary structural information of your protein. Why? Following the previous lecture and the lecture from yesterday by Yorgos Piroulias, just to remind you that, of course, the most precise picture of a protein structure at the atomic level comes from single crystal crystallography. And you require one single crystal, high quality, with a certain size. There are crystal size limitations, but now at various synchrotrons this size has been decreased, and I believe that even if you have a microcrystal of 5 microns, something like in this range, you can still collect the good quality data. Proteins crystallize with difficulties, and in some cases proteins are impossible to crystallize. Therefore, there are other methods to study amorphous proteins, like NMR. If you have a protein with a molecular weight below 100 kilodaltons, if I'm correct. If your protein is larger, you can use small angle X-ray scattering on amorphous protein solutions, and Dimitris Bergan has really pushed forward this field. He comes from the EMBL in Hamburg. Or small angle neutron scattering. And if we are talking about viruses and large protein complexes such as ribosomes, you can do cryo-electron microscopy. When I started back in 2003 working in this field, we saw that there is a gap, a methodological gap, so there was no real method to study stuff like this, which are so often obtained in your lab during crystallization springs. So the question was whether we could apply the powder diffraction technique in order to solve and refine protein structures from crystals which had these sizes, from 100 nanometers to 10 microns. The advantages of the method are several. First of all, we can study very low quality samples, sub-micron crystals, as I already mentioned, twinned or mosaic crystals, because we don't see these defects. It's an ideal method for high throughput crystal screening, because data collection is very quick, and also preparation of microcrystalline precipitates is much easier from what we've seen over the last decade. We usually solve protein structures at various crystallization conditions, and this is a way to create a phase diagram. In material science, this is very common. In protein crystallography, this was not a common approach, and maybe because it was not possible to create a nice single crystal at various conditions. But with our methods, we can, at least up to a certain point, relax this limitation. And as I'm going to show in the following slides, we tend to create phase diagrams for each protein in order to create a more complete structural picture at various crystallization conditions. I'm interested in situ processes, chemical reactions. And we believe that the technique is ideal also for capturing diffraction data at very, very short time frames in order to follow a chemical reaction or a structural evolution upon variation of a physicochemical environmental condition, for example, such as humidity. And we usually use less chemical additives because to prepare this precipitate, which is very bad sample, you don't need to introduce many crystallization agents in most of the cases we've seen to date, at least. For the high throughput crystal screening, many years ago in 2004, Jacques Amet and co-workers for the first time at the SRF, at the French crystallographic beamline, this is a single crystal beamline, put a crystallization tray. We crystallize our proteins in these trays, as you know. So they put this tray directly in front of an area detector using this robotic arm. The sample in each well looks like this in a successful crystallization experiment, and they could collect data which looked like this. By doing that, they could screen hundreds of crystallization plates in order to identify successful crystallization conditions. So one suggestion for you is to use the method simply for screening your crystallization screens. That's the easiest. If you see rings, like these ones, you have something crystalline. The next level is to separate salt from protein crystals. Salt crystals appear in completely different 2 theta ranges, and therefore by simply collecting this data, you know if you manage to crystallize your protein or it's another of the crystallization agents you used. So at a simple level, you just look at the data without doing anything further. Regarding in situ experiments and screening various crystallization conditions, this is one of our more recent results on insulin co-crystallized with a specific ligand called 4-ethyl resorcinol. So we crystallized the protein at different pHs. We collected data, powder diffraction data. On this axis it's the intensity, on the horizontal axis is the 2 theta angle. So these are all the data we collected in less than 1 hour at the synchrotron. And for the non-powder diffractionists, for the diffraction positions, peak positions, we extract space group and lattice parameters. From the intensities, we extract the atomic positions based on the electron density maps. So, first observation in a very quick experiment is that the positions of the diffraction lines change drastically at a certain crystallization pH, and therefore we knew immediately, in less than 1 hour, that we have a clear first-order phase transition upon pH variation. This is an example, but you might be interested to vary a different parameters, such as the temperature or some concentration of an agent. So again, this was one example to prove the screening aspect of the method. More recently, I had an idea many years ago to vary humidity. The idea is not a new idea. In all the small molecule pharmaceuticals, people try to study structurally how the molecule evolves upon humidity variation. Why humidity is important? Because drugs are stored at a certain condition, and you want to know if your drug is stable upon humidity changes. So we observe the environmental response of a molecule, small organic or a protein, upon environmental changes. I wanted to do the same on a protein, but I was missing this chamber. And this chamber was produced by Anton Parr a few years ago. We adapted the chamber on a lab diffractometer from analytical, and we loaded our protein samples, which looked like this. So we vary the relative humidity, and we collect data in order to observe any structural transitions. We started this experimental work with the tetragonal hen and white lysozyme simply because it crystallizes very quickly and very robustly, and we didn't expect to see any structural changes upon humidity variation. Here you see the powder data, but imagine you're looking at the data from above. So wherever you see a line, it's a diffraction peak, and the stronger the color is, the higher the peak in intensity. On the vertical axis, it's the relative humidity, and on the horizontal is 2 theta, the diffraction angle. So if you look at this plot, you see that around 75% relative humidity, the peak positions change, indicating a structural drastic evolution. After indexing these profiles, the space group remains the same, it's a tetragonal structure, but we observe this drastic change in the A and C lattice parameters. Look at this jump. And afterwards, when we solved the structure, we saw that basically the lattice undergoes a dramatic phase transition upon humidity variation. After lysozyme, we continued with around 10 different enzymes and proteins in general, and in most of them we observe drastic transitions. So it's an axis that we consider very important, not only for the pharma industry to observe the stability of a drug upon environmental and storage conditions, but to see how humidity, the levels of water, modifies structures of proteins, as it has done in DNA, for example. And this is how one polymorph of DNA from alpha to beta to zeta, these things have been observed already. So we consider humidity as a very key parameter for protein structures. Many years, people also got confused and thought that we could measure amorphous samples. And then I found this very nice website produced by Therese Bergfors. She's based in Uppsala in Sweden. To separate the good from the bad precipitate. We both work with precipitates. The thing is that we cannot study amorphous precipitates. Therefore, she gives a very practical guide. The good precipitate is non-amorphous, is microcrystalline. Sometimes it's nanocrystalline and you cannot see the crystals with an optical microscope. Shows barred regions, and the precipitate redissolves if given the right conditions. The bad precipitate is amorphous, it's brownish in color, it creates schemes on the crystallization drop, and it does not redissolve upon dilution. So if we look at the two cases with an optical microscope, this is how they look. So from the optical microscopy figures, if it's shiny, you can be hopeful that it's microcrystalline and not amorphous. And if we put these two samples in front of an X-ray beam, this is what you will see. In the case of the amorphous, we get only a background, and this is a sample that you can study with small angle X-ray scattering, for example, but no diffraction. The microcrystalline sample gives data which have diffraction lines, and this is exactly the data set that we require for further structural analysis. So we need crystals, we just need smaller crystals. And various morphologies, it doesn't matter about the morphology of the crystal or the dimensions or the mosaicity. We have studied various different morphologies, even sea urchins, bunches of needles. We usually transfer the samples into glass capillaries, and if you look at this with an optical microscope, this is what you should see inside. We necessitate high crystal packing density in order to have good data. If you have a few crystals, you cannot get reliable data. So you need to centrifuge the glass capillaries prior to data collection. The main complaint we were getting from biologists preparing samples was that we were requesting too large sample amounts. We needed for glass capillaries from 20 microliters to 100 microliters protein precipitate, and therefore we were obliged to reduce this sample amount which is required. So one night at the synchrotron we thought, why not follow the single crystal approach? You have a loop like these Miltesian loops, they look like tennis rackets. We scooped a sea urchin that you saw in the previous slide, one of these. Basically, one of these is now our sample. And then we used a single crystal station at the SRF, ID14, with a Pilatus area detector, and boom, we collected data up to 3.9 angstroms resolution. By the way, in order to have good data, you need to see homogeneous rings, otherwise the intensities will be wrong, and you cannot do anything further than indexing. We collected this data at room temperature using this controlled dehydration device, and with this resolution we could even solve and refine the structure of a domain 120 amino acid domain of a virus protein. The protein is non-structural protein 3 of the virus. The structure was unknown to date, and now we are preparing the first structural model to be released very soon. So from the conclusion was that even with a very small amount of sample, very low quality crystalline sample, some cases life can be unexpected and you can get at least a preliminary structural model. The minimum sample amount required to date for a synchrotron experiment is a sea urchin, or in other terms 5 microliters of protein precipitate. Regarding data collection, these days we tend to combine synchrotron with laboratory data. We tend to implement advantages from the two facilities, and I will try to explain very briefly why. Of course, we use the European Synchrotron Radiation Facility, and more recently we started visiting Soleil outside Paris in France, Spring 8 in Japan, and the Swiss light source. And this is the big line I've been working for many years. Till recently it was numbered as ID31. It's the high resolution powder diffraction big line. It has a big circle, which is the 2 theta circle. This is where the X-rays come out. This is where the capillary is loaded on the goniometer. And at the end of this arm, there are 9 point detectors. The resolution in powder diffraction is defined as angular resolution. It means how narrow the diffraction peaks are. It's critical because peaks overlap and therefore we lose information. So we try to instrumentally achieve the highest angular resolution, which means the narrowest diffraction peaks possible. This is a pharmaceutical protein called urate oxidase that is an ingredient of a drug called Frasturtec. It's out in the market for controlling uric acid. For us, it's a monster because it's a tetramer with these lattice dimensions, orthorhombic unit cell. It came from Xanobin Aventis, and we didn't expect this very, very high data quality. High data quality means good signal to noise ratio, how well the peak, each peak is above the background, how narrow the diffraction lines are in order to be separated one from the other, and the maximum 2 theta that we observe diffraction lines. Around here, to give you an idea, is 3 angstroms resolution in this spacing, and this is our most common data resolution we achieve. 3 angstroms, our best resolution has been 2.3, which is not too bad, thinking what you measure as your sample. 2 months ago, I visited the new ID31, which is now equipped with new mono and andulators, and it's a brand new big line. So the first sample we put, in order to go out in Grenoble for a nice dinner, was cubic insulin. We came back and we saw this. This slide impresses powder diffraction. It's because really the data look like it's a calibrant and not a protein. Cubic insulin has this phase profile parameter, and if you look at this profile, it really goes on and on and on. The data, these insets are zoomed areas here at high 2 theta to show that there are still peaks up here. This data set reached 2.2 angstroms resolution, very impressive result, and despite the fact that the sample resisted for less than 1 minute in the X-ray beam, we collected this profile, which I consider ideal for teaching powder diffraction. So regarding data collection, we are still playing with instruments in order to improve what we call angular resolution, and this high angular resolution is critical for solving a structure. For indexing, it's not so important. In 2013, installed this laboratory diffractometer from Analytical in our lab in Patras, which is parallel beam, focusing beam geometry because it has mirrors focusing the beam on the detector surface. And the detector is a very high-tech detector based on the Meditix project, basically the project which resulted in the Pilatus detector. It's a very low background, high efficient detector, and we routinely collect data which look like this. This is an insulin sample complexed with a ligand called nitrophenol, and it's an hexameric form of insulin. And if you look at this data, the pits are broader, so we have lower angular resolution, but as I'm going to show, the samples in the lab resist for at least 24 hours in the X-ray beam because the photon flux is much lower than at the synchrotron, and therefore we saw that in the lab we get better statistics. So in our refinements, we combine synchrotron data for taking advantage of the very high angular resolution with lab data which give us the high d-spacing resolution. Today I'm going to show an example to demonstrate this effect. Two examples, one to demonstrate how we identify polymorphs of proteins and how we identify even novel polymorphs of insulin, and how we refine our structures, and even how we identify ligands, small organics, and how they bind on protein surfaces. To remind you about insulin, it's a hormone which consists of two chains, chain A and B. Chain A has a disulfide bridge here, shown in yellow. The two chains hold the monomer, the insulin monomer, which is the active form of insulin, and the two chains bind to each other with two disulfide bridges. When we have zinc in the environment, which is shown here as red sphere, insulin forms hexamers, and this was one of the very first structures solved by Dorothy Hodgkin, who got the Nobel Prize back in the 60s. Because I'm going to mention these notations, there are three very well molecular polymorphs of insulin, T6, R6, and T3R3. The difference between the three polymorphs refer to this red part, red helix, which in T6 has this conformation. It is called extended. In R6, it's more helical. And in T3R3, three monomers have this conformation, and three monomers have the other one. So it's an intermediate polymorph. We know by now that there are several polymorphs existing depending on crystallization, pH, and concentration of additives. There is a great interest still in finding new forms of potentially therapeutic applications to improve the currently known drugs against diabetes. What kind of improvement? Mainly pharmacokinetics. This is what industry and researchers are trying to improve. And we study microcrystalline insulin suspensions crystallized as a function of pH and with phenol-based additives. We work with phenol-based because phenol is an antibacterial agent used in drugs. And many years ago, people wanted to see what is the effect of this agent, it's a small organic molecule, on the protein structure and function. So today we have discovered a very rich phase diagram. One example out of many corresponds to these two ligands, M-cresol and 4-nitrophenol. They look like phenol, but they're not the same. They form different hydrogen bond networks. By crystallizing them at different pHs, we saw immediately that at high pH, you can almost see the 6 poles rotation axis, so we knew that up here we should have one of these three molecular polymorphs, T6, R6, or T3R3. At low pH though, we were getting repeatedly very low quality crystals and without being able to say we visited the SRF, and these are the data of the samples with Gresol. These are sample codes corresponding to different crystallization pHs. And as shown before, these are all the data collected for a sample series. So if you look at them, you see that one set of data has peaks at a certain set of 2 theta angles, and another set of data, the data dramatically change, and we knew that there is a phase transition. The principal component analysis is a very nice way to very quickly screen your data. It groups, clusters, profiles together based on their similarities, and if we import all of our data in a software, in this case we used the HighScore class, it separated the profiles into 2 families, green and blue, based on their similarities, what we could see by eye. After indexing, we knew that there is a clear phase transition in both cases of ligands. With Gresol, we have a transition from a monoclinic phase, previously unknown, to an hexagonal phase, the R6 molecular conformation. With 4-nitrophenol, we have again this new monoclinic phase appearing, and at high pH, we have one of the known hexameric forms of insulin. It was a surprise because we thought that insulin is very well studied and there would be nothing new to discover. But even in this case, I believe this new phase might not be discovered before because the crystal quality is very low and maybe people didn't want to study these broken and very thin crystals. What we did gradually, we used the powder data for this new phase and single crystal data collected very recently at DESY in Hamburg. We visited DESY from BioStruct X program, and we solved the structure using the molecular replacement method. So it's a new polymorph that we believe it has pharmaceutical interest, and at the moment other parameters such as toxicity and physical-chemical characteristics are studied in the collaborating pharmaceutical industry. To date, we have seen 2 new monoclinic polymorphs. The one is the one I just showed. We call it P21 gamma. And another monoclinic one is called alpha, in order to separate it from this one. They have the same space group but different lattice dimensions. And these 2 polymorphs appeared upon co-crystallization at acidic environment of insulin with phenol, resorcinol, or 4-LD-resorcinol. To complete this part of the insulin phase diagram, just to give you an idea that these 2 polymorphs were discovered a few years ago by our colleagues at Novo Nordisk from powder diffraction data and solved from single crystal data. So again, it was a happy surprise to be able to discover something new in this insulin search for new drugs process. Finally, I would like to show that we don't just do indexing. With good data, you can really solve structures and refine, but there are some tricks. You cannot refine a large structure using only one profile because one powder data set does not contain sufficient information. So we use combined profiles, and our methods are described in these 3 articles in order to enhance the information content. We use total omit maps better than difference electron density maps because they have less model bias. And of course, we use several software packages. Some of them are designed for powders, some for single crystals, and some are homemade programs that we needed in order to analyze our data. Mainly we use the language Python because it's much simpler. So for the structure refinement, together with Bob Mondrell, he developed a new approach and he implemented it into a software called JSAS for refining the structure. And I applied this method on bovine insulin. Basically, till now, we were refining structures, allowing all atoms to move using, of course, stereochemical restraints, but for us it was very hard because the data are not as good as single crystal data. And with this flexible rigid body, you consider each amino acid as a rigid body, but it can move and it can rotate. So basically, each amino acid is described as a zeta matrix, and this way the number of refined parameters is significantly reduced, and this is our approach these days. The flexible rigid body approach is the way we refine structures. This method was applied on bovine insulin and on human insulin co-crystallized with M-cresol, the known R6 conformation. So we combined 8 profiles, 4 from synchrotron, that you see here, and 4 from the lab. And in fact, I was very much impressed when I saw this. This is the high to theta portion of the data. In red are the synchrotron data, in blue are the lab data. I believe because of the much slower radiation damage that the sample suffers in the lab, we could collect diffraction peaks up to higher to theta that gave a higher dispacing resolution. We reached approximately 2.5 angstroms, and the total omit maps that you will see here were sufficient for completely refining the structural model and identifying where M-cresol sits on the protein surface. This is InnovCrete. It's a software designed for single crystal data, but programs do not understand if you have other single crystal data. It fits the protein structure in your electron density map. And if you saw the electron density, because of this combination of diffraction profiles was sufficient for completing the model. And not only the protein, but also the ligand sites were identified. From the literature, we knew that there are 3 phenol pockets on the insulin monomer surface, and we identified 3 more, each shown in green, and here are the 3 new ligand sites together with a portion from the total omit maps. This is very important for the pharma industry because most of the experiments pharmaceutical R&Ds are interested in are not to refine new protein structures, but to identify how a small organic, which is the drug, binds on the protein surface and how this affects its function. So now we can demonstrate that even this ligand identification might be possible with good quality powder diffraction data. There are not so many ligand identification results in the news using powder diffraction. This is why these results attracted a little bit of attention. They were shown in the March 2015 ESRF news. And together with Novo Nordisk, we are happy that we could identify and publish many nice results. So my result as a physicist is that proteins are very, they can produce beautiful new results no matter what, because they're simply more flexible structures and more easy to modify. Modifying temperature, humidity, pH, the presence of different ligands. It's not like material science that we are used to work with robust materials like inorganics. Finally, some concluding remarks is that structure solution via molecular replacement using good quality powder data is fast and easy. Structure refinements and ligand identification processes are time-consuming. Usually we require from 3 to 12 months, and that's something that we're trying to screening, polymorph identification, for screening crystal size and morphology prior to an experiment under the free electron laser, and phase mapping, completing a structural investigation of various crystallization conditions. And it's an ideal technique to be synergistically used with free electron laser measurements and electron diffraction data on single nanocrystals, which is an area that now starts taking off, and we believe very much in this. I would like to thank all of you, all my ESRF colleagues for all this collaboration over the years, and of course the people at the University of Patras, current and former members, many people over the planet, around the planet, for their collaboration over the years. And I would like to close with this slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Irene. This is really quite impressive to see how the techniques in structural biology evolve over the years. I mean, in my time that would be impossible to see using that for this. But now we see there is also this possibility, and it's open for questions. Any questions? So I have a couple of questions. I have a question concerning phasing. At the moment, it's only molecular replacement that you use for that. You are not thinking of developing.
We have tried successfully with isomorphous replacement a couple of times, but it's much more tricky, I have to say. Anomalous dispersion is even worse, SATMAT. The molecular replacement is very robust. It's the most successful method using this kind of data. There are a couple of publications demonstrating the isomorphous replacement. The technique near has been more successful than here, with multiple heavy atom derivatives.
And concerning the final, I mean, not particular, but I mean, if you get from your experiment your intensities and your scales, I mean, what's then the problem of using normal refinement programs?
In fact, we use both. We use RegPot or Phoenix more recently. GSA still has the advantage that we can import directly the data and not the extracted intensities. Because by extracting the intensities, we introduce an error which arises from deconvoluting overlap reflections. That's the advantage of the powder software. But in fact, a few cycles we use another set of software like Phoenix. We like it very much, and then we continue with GSIS again.
If I understood this right, you mean that you are also using in the new program, the refinement, also overlapping reflections and try to refine towards the value of the overlap. Yeah?
Yes. Exactly. So basically.
So you don't find the F's of the overlap. That's what.
Exactly. There is the overlap criterion, which has to be taken into account. When you work with extracted intensities, you trick the program. It doesn't know about this factor. It thinks your sample was trimmed. And this introduces.
But I mean, if you have a model to describe, it doesn't actually matter.
Exactly.
What you are doing.
Yes.
And the last thing is more about all this drug industry and so on. Why are they interested in so many different forms of insulin?
Okay, there are many axes of interest. This particular program emphasizes on packing more insulin molecules in the same unit cell. I forgot to mention that some drugs against diabetes are microcrystalline, are not amorphous, and therefore we work on the development of microcrystalline insulin drugs. So if you manage to pack more protein molecules in a crystal, you may reduce the doses that a diabetic requires every day. So that was the interest. In fact, to create a unit cell with more insulin molecules inside.
Can you also control how the solubility of the crystal? Because I mean,
Yes.
if you can control how fast they dissolve,
Exactly.
you sort of make life easier for them.
This is the second axis that we started looking at. This is in the term, hidden in the term pharmacokinetics, and it refers to dissolution rate, which in some cases is related to crystal sizes as well, apart from the ingredients. So it's both axes, but as structural in our group, we work mainly in characterizing, in creating and characterizing different crystalline polymers, and then our pharmaceutical colleagues take over, because simply we don't have the expertise to test dissolution rate, toxicity, and so on.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.